Vaidi. Out. Up. Kemonachan. Tumi Kemowachan. Tumi Kemowachan. Balo. Tumi Kemowachan. Balo. Kubalo. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Kauravani Pracharine Nirvise Sashunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Going too fast. Going too fast. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Prabhadakacharya Asadhara Sadushi Shiman, His Divine Grace Shalasi Bhaktivedanta Smaraj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande Haribo, Slava Zabrani Bhaktam, Slava Shri Guru Shri Grangi, Om Vishnu Bhrai, Om Agyana Tumanandasya, Gananjana Salakaya, Chaksur Militam Yena, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha, Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam, Stapitam Yena Bhutale, Swayam Rupa Kadamaya, Tadati Swapadantikam, Vandeham Shri Guru, Shri Utapada Kamalam, Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Scha, Shri Rupam Sagrajatam, Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam, Sadvaitam Savadutam Vrijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vasakans Vitam Sha. Hey Krishna Karna Sindho Dinabando Dagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchina Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishubhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapa Dhruvyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Bhavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 3, Karma Yoga, text number 2. Vyami Shreneva Vakyane Buddhi Moha Nishivame Tarekam Vara Nishitya Yeno Shreyaham Apnuyan Vyami Shreneva Vakyena Buddhi Moha Yasivame Tarekam Vara Nishitya Yeno Shreyaham Apnuyam. Mataji. Yavishenema vakyena Purimohaya Sivame Tarikam Varanishchitya Yeno Shreyaham Apnuyam Yavishena by equivocal. Eva, certainly. Vakyena, words. Buddhim, intelligence. Mohayasi, you are bewildering. Eva, certainly. Me, my. Tat, therefore. Ekam, only one. Vada, please tell. Nischitya, ascertaining. Yena, by which. Shreya, real benefit. Aham, I. Apnuyam, may have. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. My intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Therefore, please tell me decisively which is most beneficial for me. So, please repeat. My intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Therefore, please tell me decisively which will be most beneficial for me. Purport. In the previous chapter, as a prelude to the Bhagavad Gita, many different paths were explained, such as Sankhya Yoga, Buddha Yoga, control of the senses by intelligence, work without fruit of desire, and the position of the neophyte. This is all presented unsystematically. A more organized outline of the path would be necessary for action and understanding. Arjuna therefore wanted to clear up these apparently confusing matters so that any common man would accept them without misinterpretation. Although Krishna had no intention of confusing Arjuna by any jugglery of words, Arjuna could not follow the process of Krishna consciousness, either by inertia or by active service. In other words, by his questions, he's clearing the path of Krishna consciousness for all students who seriously want to understand the mystery of the Bhagavad Gita. Yavashenena vakyena buddhi moha yasivame tadekam varanishchitya yeno shayaham apnuyam. My intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Therefore, please tell me decisively which will be most beneficial for me. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhute Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatunde Ve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paschatyade Satarane. The previous verse, Arjuna asked the question, Jayasi Chet Karmanaste Mata Buddhi Janarna Tat Kim Karmani Gorimam Niyojayasi Keshava. Arjuna said, O Janarna, O Keshava, why do you want to engage me in this ghastly warfare if you think that intelligence is better than fruit of work? So Arjuna seems to be confused. We'd have to trace back. But basically speaking, Arjuna didn't want to fight, and Krishna told him to fight. He also told him that using your intelligence is that you have to learn how to use your intelligence. You have to transcend the modes of nature by using your intelligence. So apparently Arjuna didn't understand, well, Krishna wants me to fight, but at the same time he wants me to use my intelligence to transcend the modes of material nature. He told me that I'm a Kshatriya, I should fight. And then he also told me I should give up the Vedas, and my position as a Kshatriya comes from the Vedas. The duties of a Kshatriya come from the Vedas, but he tells me I should transcend them. So Arjuna was a little confused, apparently. What is he talking about? He tells me I'm a Kshatriya, I have to fight, because that's what the Vedas say. And then he tells me to go beyond the Vedas. The Vedas are there, yamimam pushpitam vacham prabhavatnyo vipasita. Only the people who are Vedavata Rata Partha, those who are less intelligent, they're attracted to the flowery language of the Vedas. They recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to the heavenly planets, resulting good birth and so forth. Being desirous of sense gratification, opulent life, they say that there's nothing more than this. And then Krishna tells Arjuna, Yadrichaya chopapanam swargam dvaram uparita shukina kshatriya partha labate yudam idrisham. Happy are the Kshatriyas, O Arjuna, to such fighting opportunities come unsought, opening for them to the doors of the heavenly planets. So Krishna, he tells Arjuna, you're less intelligent people, they want to go to the heavenly planets. And then he's telling Arjuna to fight, because even if he loses, he'll go to the heavenly planets. So there's good reason why Arjuna was a little confused, because if we were there, we wouldn't even understand what Krishna's talking about. What to speak of being confused, we wouldn't even, what is he talking about? So that's, apparently Krishna was giving him a very unsystematic. He tells him first, you're not the body. But then he tells him that you should fight because you're a Kshatriya. Then he tells him that only foolish people, they're interested in this business of being a Kshatriya and doing sacrifice, that they should transcend it. And then he tells him to give up all these desires, as he'll say at the end of the Bhagavad Gita. Just let them flow through you, don't even think about them. Give up all desires for sense gratification, live free from desires, give up all false proprietorship and false ego, then you can actually find peace. Arjuna said, well, you just told me that I'm not the body. Then you tell me I should fight because I'm a Kshatriya. Then you tell me that foolish people, they identify themselves with these bodies. And now you're telling me I should just give up all these desires and live free from desires. Give up all desires for sense gratification. Then I can find real peace. So what's going on? So it's not that, well, we don't find it so confusing because we've read the Bhagavad Gita. Therefore we can get some idea that Krishna told Arjuna, he gave him a snapshot of what he was going to talk about. In other words, it's a fact. The basic principle of the Vedas is that we're not the body. But to get out of the bodily concept of life, one has to follow the Varnashram. And Arjuna was a Kshatriya, so his duty was to fight. But Varnashram is not the end in itself. One has to go beyond Varnashram in order to realize oneself as being a spiritual being. Varnashram is not sufficient for that. It leads one to this realization, but it's not sufficient for it. And then the idea of becoming a spiritual being is not just to give up all desires and live free from desires, give up all sense of proprietorship, but it's to become aware of one's real ego. But Krishna didn't want to tell Arjuna that all at once because he couldn't possibly understand it. But unless he gave him a summary, which apparently was confusing, Arjuna wouldn't have asked any questions. In other words, if Krishna would have, he already started with that, we're not this body, and if he would have just systematically gone through, Brahma, Paramatma, Bhagavan realization, Arjuna wouldn't ask any questions. Krishna just would have talked for a couple of hours, and whether Arjuna was listening or not, Krishna probably wouldn't have understood until 2 hours later. And then Krishna would have asked Arjuna, well, have you understood? And he said, understand what? I don't know what you're talking about. You're claiming to be God. Is that what you're trying to, you're God? So apparently Krishna did go through a very systematic presentation, but only a very intelligent person could have understood. Only one whose consciousness was purified could have actually understood what Krishna was talking about. Therefore, he set the scene for Arjuna to ask questions. So that if we would have, just generally speaking, we hear the philosophy, we half hear it, or a quarter hear it, or whatever we hear it. We don't understand anything, and we think, this is really all confusing. And then when it's time for questions, we can't remember what we were confused about. We're so confused. So we don't ask any questions, because we're too confused. Number one, we think we've understood everything. We haven't even understood we're not this body yet. Okay, we think we have understood everything. Then we hear the philosophy, and it seems like it's like, wow, what is he talking about? He's going from one point to the next. He's going from A to Z back to C. What is he talking about? Anyhow, he told a couple of jokes, and it wasn't so bad. I could have lived through it. But Krishna has been speaking Bhagavad Gita since time immemorial, so he's really expert. So when we hear Arjuna saying, Vyavasayena Arjuna Vacha, Jayasi Tat Karmanaste Matir Bhuta Janarna, Tat Kim Karmani Gorimam, Nyo Jayasi Keshva. I don't know, I don't understand what you're talking about. And he says, Vyavasayena Vivakyena Bhuni Mohi. Have you confused my intelligence? Krishna didn't confuse Arjuna's intelligence, it's just that he didn't have any. That's why he couldn't understand it. So now Krishna will systematically explain Bhagavad Gita. And basically speaking, whatever he said in the second chapter will just be expanded upon. So Arjuna will understand that actually Krishna wasn't confusing his intelligence. He was giving a perfect summary of it, but without putting himself into it. So the rest of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna will gradually put himself into the Bhagavad Gita, because otherwise it's not understandable what he talked about in the second chapter. Now Arjuna in the second chapter, he accepted Krishna's guru, where he said that now I'm confused about my duty and I've lost all kripanya dosho pata svabhava prishami tvam dharma samudha cheta. It's trying ishtitam mai shishasteham sarimam tvam babhanam. Now I'm confused about my duty, I've lost all my composure due to miserly weakness. In this condition, I'm asking you to tell me clearly what to do. I'm a disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Kindly instruct me. So Krishna wasn't about to say, well, actually you accepted me as your guide, and you were lucky because I'm God. You chose the right person. Because otherwise it would have been, the Bhagavad Gita would have been one chapter, 2 chapters. And we wouldn't have understood, the details of what he's talking about. Matter of fact, we don't understand them either. But at least the Bhagavad Gita gives us a background for the Srimad Bhagavatam. The problem with the Bhagavad Gita, there's no problem with the Bhagavad Gita, but without a vivid example, we're not intelligent enough to understand what he's talking about. We're not so philosophical. As Prabhupada said, an intelligent person, they can learn just by hearing. Now, Vyasadeva wrote the Vedanta Sutra, and one who's super intelligent, more intelligent than anyone in this era, because even the most intelligent persons, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he was a disciple of Brihaspati, who was the spiritual master of the demigods. And he couldn't understand Vedanta Sutra. He got it all wrong. All wrong means that he didn't, the basic principle, as Bhagavad Gita will try to explain to us, we have two things. We have the false ego and we have a real ego. Now, the soul, due to ignorance, he generally accepts the false ego. And the false ego has one thing in mind, to become a controller and an enjoyer. And the real ego means to become a servant and to be enjoyed. Now that's the two things. Vedanta Sutra Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, with all his intelligence, got it all wrong. He thought he was the enjoyer and the controller. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he was so intelligent, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he could actually explain to him in a few words from Bhagavad Gita, actually, explaining to him how you're not the controller, you're enjoyer, you're the servant, and you're to be enjoyed by Krishna. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he arranged 7 days of just listening to Vedanta Sutra, misinterpreted, according to the impersonalist philosophy. And then finally Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya asked a question. In other words, he was used to speaking for 7 days. But then finally he asked a question. So that's very significant. When you're giving a talk, hopefully you're listening to yourself. But generally speaking, people in the audience, they're actually asking a question. What do you have to tell me? What do I have to... They're, just being in the audience means it's questioning. Should be if you're awake, to be questioning. Just being in the audience means that you're willing to ask, you're asking a question. What do you have to tell me? And the speaker, if he's a little awake, he realizes he should be listening too, because the real speaker is Krishna, and he's just acting as an instrument. But that doesn't always happen. Now, when the speaker asks a question, then he's taking the role of the audience, actually. He wants to hear from the person. He wants to get some feedback, whatever you want to call it. So he's actually taking a humble position when he asks the question. So after 7 days, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya got a little nervous, and he started to ask, well, you've been sitting here for 7 days. I guess you've been listening. You didn't look like you fell asleep. You fell asleep. Your eyes seem to be open. But have you understood anything I've said? And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I haven't understood anything because you're talking nonsense. Why should I understand? And then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was shocked. He said, all right, if you think I'm talking nonsense, then you give me a better explanation. And then he gave him a better explanation. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was intelligent enough to say, well, that makes a lot more sense than what I was talking about. He was humble and intelligent enough to accept it, especially coming from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So similarly, Krishna goes through the Bhagavad Gita, explains to Arjuna. Arjuna's asking. Finally, he stimulated Arjuna's intelligence because he's accepted Krishna as his instructor. So he has some faith that this Krishna, he seems to know what he's talking about, but he just went through 15, 20 minutes or whatever it took him to say that, but he couldn't understand it. So Arjuna said, I surrendered to you. I asked you to tell me what to do. You told me, 5 different things to do, and they all seem to be different. So can you explain it to me? So Arjuna was humble enough to ask the question. He didn't tell Krishna. He said, I surrendered to you, but I think I made a mistake. You're talking all nonsense. Maybe I should just run away. So it sparked Arjuna's curiosity, and then he asked Krishna questions for the rest of the Bhagavad Gita until the very end. Then finally Krishna asked Arjuna the question. Kachit etat shutam bharata tvaya kagrena chetasa kachit agana samoha pranatas te dhananjaya. Finally he asked Arjuna, have you actually heard what I've been talking about? Have you been listening at all? Not only just listening, Krishna was not going to be satisfied. Yeah, I heard part of it, whatever, I heard that all before. I heard this. So many people told me I'm not the body. You told me again. Yeah, I heard it. No, Krishna was interested. Kachit etas shutam bharata tvaya kagrena chet. Have you been listening with rapt attention? He wanted to understand if actually Krishna understood, not just was listening. He was actually understanding what Krishna was talking about. Because he asked so many questions for clarification. So he wanted to know if you got the whole thing. Now, of course, we know that Arjuna said in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita that I heard this Param Brahma Param Bhava in the 10th chapter, Param Brahma Param Dhamma Pavitram Paramam Bhava. He finally got it. You're God. Now I got it. you're the Supreme Person. And Arjuna said, well, actually, I've got it. Finally, you're the Supreme Person. You're a controller, the enjoyer. I've got it. But who's going to believe you? So then he said, Arjuna, in the 11th chapter, Mara nugrahaya paramam guyamatnapasam gitam yat partena mohanam vigatomama. That, what is the Mara anugrahaya? By your mercy, I've heard this. Mara anugrahaya paramam guyamatma, this most confident of all Vedic knowledge. But you've kindly given me these, my illusion has now been dispelled. So he claims his illusion is dispelled, but he wanted Krishna to show his universal form, just to prove to everyone that he's God. And then the rest of the 12th chapter, Krishna will talk about surrender, devotional service, and then he goes through Jnana Yoga, explaining in detail. He'll say in the 14th chapter that Param Brahma, now I'm going to explain to you knowledge which is better than I've explained before, the supreme knowledge, by knowing all the sages have obtained liberation. Parambuya pravakshami jnanam jnanam uttama yajgatva muniya sarve pram siddhimito gata. Now I'm going to explain to you even better knowledge than the fact of devotional service, saying I'm God. So Arjuna was prepared to, all right. You said this is most confident, this is confidential knowledge, this is more confidential, and this is the most confidential, and now you're going to tell me knowledge which is better than most confidential. So then Krishna goes over from the 14th chapter to the end of the Bhagavad Gita, practically speaking, about Jnana Yoga. So why is that better? Because it's something more understandable for the conditioned soul. Just like we're aspiring devotees, but how many minutes during the day are we overwhelmed with love of God? We're just vibrating spiritual love and ecstasy. So that doesn't, if that was the whole thing, pure devotion, it wouldn't be, we'd be a little disappointed. We couldn't really follow the path very well. Because if that's what we were expecting, then, sometimes we may feel some ecstasy, some devotion, whatever else. But it's not our steady factor. But we have intelligence, and we can see things. We can understand things. And therefore, that can guide us along the path to the point where we can actually experience ecstasy all the time in love. So therefore, the end of first Bhagavad Gita, the first 6 chapters, is all about duty. How to raise ourselves dutifully from one level of consciousness to the next by following the process, by using our senses and mind. And the next part, the last part, is how we can see things so that we can keep on the path of following the process. How to see things, and how to see things not only when we're happy, when everything's going, but even especially when we're distressed, so that we can keep on the path, have the vision, so that we can keep on using our intelligence and using our mind and senses in Krishna service, the determination. So, and eventually, in the 14th chapter, Krishna says, Prakasham cha vrivritim cha moham eva cha pandava nidveshti sampravitani ninivritani kangshite. Because for the most part, we may go all the way up and experience so much happiness, like on Harinam, a book distribution or something, but we know as soon as it stops. So then we have to understand that it's going to happen, and at the same time, not get disturbed by it. Because until we come to the platform of bhava, even nishta, we're not anymore going down sometimes. We're at least, when we crash, at least we crash in the same place. on the step platform of understanding that I'm not this body, etc. But we don't, even on this platform of Nishtha, it's not that you don't go up and then come down. But initially, at least when you come down, you don't come all the way down. So you stay steady, you come up, experience transcendental realizations and happiness, and you come down. And then you stay steady, because you've understood that, yes, sometimes I'll get illumination and happiness, etc. And sometimes they'll lessen. So we also have to understand that. But we shouldn't become discouraged by it. We should maintain steadiness and faith in the process, and then keep on with the process, in spite of the fact that sometimes we'll, by Krishna's mercy and by the mercy of his devotees, we'll go up, and sometimes we'll come down again. So Arjuna is going to have at least until the end of the Bhagavad Gita, the whole process will be explained systematically, what the different levels of processes of elevating one's consciousness, what the highest process is, devotion, and how to stay steady while you're going through the different processes, and even through the different stages of devotion, how to not get disturbed when sometimes we go up according to the modes and sometimes we go down according to the modes. We should keep on going in our process of devotional service. So at the end, Krishna says, all right, now I've explained the whole Bhagavad Gita. Have you listened with perfect attention? And is your illusion now destroyed? And you remain fixed to follow my instructions. So Krishna was really interested to find out if Arjuna had absorbed the whole Bhagavad Gita, not just the devotional part, or not just the different levels of process, but how to stay steady, whatever we're going through in the material world. And Arjuna said, yes. Nashto moha smritira labdva tat prasada maya chuta stitosmi gata sandeha karisheya vachanam tava. Yes, I've heard this whole thing, and my illusion has now been destroyed. I've regained my memory. Now I remember who I actually am and who you are. And now I'm prepared to fight according to your instructions. So there's a process we have to go through. This smriti, our constitutional position and the absence of illusion, is essential for us to make progress. As long as we maintain that, then we do make progress. And as soon as we lose that idea that I'm the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna, then we lose our humility, we lose our identity, we forget who we actually are, and then we wind up losing our spiritual intelligence, and then we have to go down and experience something other than Krishna consciousness, and then hopefully sadhana bhakti, or whatever, harinam, whatever we go, then we come up again, until finally we realize that I got to keep my mind, my intelligence fixed on the fact that I'm Krishna's servant, and not become affected by illusion when it appears or disappears. Remain steady. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions? It's interesting, Prabhupada in his purport, he mixes it all up here, the process. He says, many different paths were explained, such as Sankhya Yoga, which will be explained in the 6th chapter, Buddha Yoga, which won't be really explained until the middle 6 chapters, or it was explained at the end of the introduction of the contents. Control of the senses by intelligence. Krishna explained that in the middle. Work without fruit of desire. He explained that even before that. And the position of the neophyte. So that was very kind of like in the beginning to the end of the 2nd chapter. So even in Prabhupada's purport, he kind of doesn't even give the order. Any questions? Everyone confused? Vyavishayatmaka buddhi. What is that? Vyavishena vivyakena buddhima. Okay. I was trying to confuse you so you could ask questions. Following Krishna's strategy.
Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he is preaching about Bhakti Yoga or Mayavadi philosophy he is preaching?
Well, when we was talking to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the beginning, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he came to Jagannath Puri, he saw Jagannath and he ran towards Jagannath in ecstasy and fainted before him. So the guards, they probably don't see people fainting in ecstasy very often. So they were about to beat Chaitanya Mahaprabhu because they thought he was faking it. But Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was there, and he was learned, at least in the theoretical science. So he forbid them, and he wanted to take Chaitanya. He saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in a very high state of consciousness. So he took him to his house, and he put a little feather in front of his nose to see if it would move, to see if he was still alive. So he saw there was a little bit of life in there, breathing. So he realized this is a person on the stage of Mahabhava. But for him, Mahabhava meant that he was in Brahman realization.
But Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya Prabhu, he know Mahabhava, all the sign. But
he thought Mahabhava meant impersonal Brahman realization.
But he not understood to Mahaprabhu.
He didn't understand Mahaprabhu, not at all.
But he understood his coming Mahabhava to all the sign to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Because he thought the sign of Mahabhava was a sign of Brahman realization, that he was in Brahman. He was in trance of Brahman, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was actually merged in Brahman. So he's an impersonalist, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So then when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came out of trance, then he thought, well, here's a sannyasi, he's young and he's very beautiful, I have to protect him. So he realized he came out of the trance, so he's not situated in Brahman. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya later on the 64 explanations of the Atmarama verse. So, because Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya wanted a different interpretation than the one he understood, originally from the Atmarama verse. So he understood it from an impersonalist point of view. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained it to him in detail about the different stages of both impersonal realization, but also they're paralleled by personal realization too. There's also an explanation. In other words, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya didn't get it all wrong. He just got it wrong because he didn't understand that higher than the impersonal different levels is the personal different levels also, which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu elaborated in the Atmarama verse by his 64 explanations. So at that time he saw that here's a young sannyasi I have to preach to him. So he preached to him from the Sharira Bhasha about how to merge into Brahman as the goal of the Vedanta Sutra. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, and then he asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, have you understood what I'm talking about? He said, I couldn't understand anything because you're talking all nonsense. Because the Vedanta Sutra is not impersonal. It's explained in Srimad Bhagavatam, it's all about Krishna. So then he explained it to, Sarvapata Panipadam Tat Sarvata Shri Shramamukam Sarvata Shrutimala Loke Sarvavritti Tishtati. That everywhere his hands and legs, his eyes and faces, this way he exists everywhere. That's Krishna, he's everywhere. And then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya realized that this is a higher explanation. That when the Vedanta Sutra is an explanation of how God is everything and he's everywhere. And that one should perform devotional service. So he got it right away, just by a few instructions. Because of course Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was quite... Then he became a personalist. And when he became a personalist, he at least accepted the personal explanation coming from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then he became purified and he felt bad that I was mistaking Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as an ordinary person. So then when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw his humility and his surrender, then he revealed the Sadbhuj form to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya when he was qualified.
Ramachandra is Krishna and
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Yeah. So, I mean, he was obviously quite intelligent because he got it right away. We've been sitting here for years. And we still don't get it. Well, that's living the Vedic culture and getting educated by Brihaspati. He has to be pretty qualified. I think he was an incarnation of Brihaspati, actually. Anything else? Well, Grantaraj Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Pune.